Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome back to Sip&Talk.
Joe, it is great to be back.
I have to tell you, right off the bat, the air in the studio today, it feels a little thick.
Thick. You think the AC is on the fritz again? I swear I told the producer to check on that.
No, it's not that. It's more of a spiritual pressure. I feel like we've got the sheer willpower of 23.5 million Taiwanese people squeezed into this booth with us.
I get what you mean. You're talking about the fallout from our last deep dive.
Fallout is an understatement. Our listeners, the Sip&Talkers, they've been banging their bowls. They loved the first half of our breakdown to the Miao-Poya versus Mr. Wu debate, but they were very, very clear on one thing.
Let me guess. You stopped right when it was getting good.
You got it. They basically screamed that at us.
And it's a fair critique. We did. We covered the history, the 1949 split, all the broad strokes. But today is where the rubber really meets the road.
I'm ready for it.
I actually had a nightmare last night that Mr. Wu, the pro-unification voice from that dialogue, had somehow snuck into the studio to stop us.
Oh my gosh, how did he bribe the security guard?
I picture him holding up like a priceless Ming Dynasty vase and shouting, "I have porcelain from the Palace Museum. This proves I own the building. Let me in."
Possession of antique ceramics constitutes a deed to the property. I mean, that is literally his argument, isn't it?
It really is, and we are absolutely going to get into that logic later. But while it's funny when we joke about it, the implications are just deadly serious.
For sure.
Today we are breaking down the second half of this viral dialogue. If part one was the history lesson, part two is the legal thriller.
I like that.
We're talking constitutions, so-called golden prisons, and the very specific, very messy collision between bloodlines and ballots.
Okay, so just to reset the stage for anyone who might have missed the last one,
Wow.
This is a breakdown of a debate between two completely different worldviews.
Mm-hmm.
In one corner, we have Mr. Wu, representing the inevitability of unification with China.
The official CCP narrative, basically.
Exactly. And in the other corner, we have Miao-Poya, or Miao.
Right. She's a Social Democratic Party politician in Taiwan, a Taipei city councilor, and the first openly LGBTQ+ elected official there. She's known for bringing, a scalpel to a gunfight, just surgically precise arguments.
So today's mission is to unpack the topic. From blood ties to free choice, collisions and cross-strait exchanges. We're moving from the big historical ideas into the real nitty-gritty of law, money, and human rights.
And as we always say here on Sip&Talk, a mature discussion isn't about, mocking people just to mock them. It's about trying to understand the differences.
But sometimes understanding those differences requires some pretty serious logical surgery. So grab your coffee, your tea, or your bubble tea.
Let's get into it. Okay, so let's unpack this. The first major collision in the second half really centers on the Constitution. And look, usually when I say the words constitutional law, I can literally see people's eyes glaze over.
It sounds like homework. It really does.
It does. But I promise you, stick with us because this is actually a fascinating legal thriller. It's like an episode of Suits, but with geopolitical consequences that could, start World War III.
Okay, high-stakes homework. I'm in. So set the scene. Mr. Wu comes out swinging with a very specific document, right?
He does. He points to the Constitution of the Republic of China. That's Taiwan's official name. And he's looking specifically at the text from 1947. He says, look at your own paperwork. It clearly says our territory includes the mainland. Therefore, you are China.
Right. You are legally bound to be part of China argument.
Yes, this is the original argument. He's looking at the text as it was written before the nationalists had even lost the Civil War and fled to Taiwan.
So he's going way back.
Way back. And if you look at that 1947 map, he's not wrong. The map that document claimed included all of modern China, Mongolia, and bits and pieces of other countries. It was a massive map.
So is he right? I mean, if the paper says, I own this, does that mean Taiwan legally owns the mainland? Or does the mainland legally own Taiwan because of this one piece of paper?
Well, this is where Miao-Poya pulls a really sophisticated legal maneuver. She introduces what she calls the patch theory, though in formal terms, we're talking about the constitutional amendments of the 1990s.
Okay, wait, let's slow that down. I know the U.S. has amendments, free speech, the right to bear arms, but how do amendments change the actual definition of a country?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
So you have to fast forward to the 1990s. Taiwan is transitioning from a dictatorship to a full-blown democracy, and they had this huge problem.
Which was?
Their constitution was written for a country they no longer controlled, that massive China map, but they couldn't just throw it away and write a new Republic of Taiwan constitution.
Why not? Just, start fresh. Seems easier.
Because that would be seen as a formal declaration of independence, which Beijing has said over and over is a red line for war. So they were stuck between a rock and a hard place.
They needed to democratize, but they couldn't change the name on the front door.
Perfectly put. So they hacked it. They created these additional articles.
Hacked it?
Yeah. Think of them like a software patch that overrides the original code without actually deleting it. These articles basically froze the parts of the Constitution that applied to the mainland. They created this new legal fiction called the Free Area versus the Mainland Area.
Free Area. That sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie, like Sector 7 or something.
It does, but legally it was absolutely brilliant. It says, for now, sovereignty is only exercised in the Free Area, which is defined as Taiwan, Penghu, Kinmen, and Matsu.
Okay.
And here is the real kicker. It changed the voting franchise.
Meaning, who gets to vote?
Exactly. Before this, the government in Taipei theoretically claimed to represent all of China. But the amendments clarified that the president is elected solely by the citizens of the Free Area.
So the 1.4 billion people on the mainland
have zero legal right to vote for the ROC president under these amendments. Their sovereignty over the presidency was patched right out.
Okay, let me try my sunny metaphor here just to make sure I'm getting this because it is a little twisty.
Go for it.
So Mr. Wu is basically saying the original deed to this house from 1947 says my grandfather owns the whole block. So I own the block.
Yes, that is his stance. The paperwork says it, so it's true.
And Miao is coming back and saying, well, we didn't burn that old deed because the guy next door threatened to burn our house down. But we find a new rental agreement in 1991 that says we only pay rent on this specific apartment and only the people living in this apartment get to choose the paint color.
That is spot on. It's the difference between bloodline legitimacy, what your ancestors wrote, and contract legitimacy, what the current residents actually agreed to. Wu is stuck in 1947. Miao is operating on the updated contract.
But Wu doesn't stop there, right? He brings up a treaty, too, the Treaty of Taipei. He sort of waves it around like it's a smoking gun.
Oh, the Treaty of Taipei. This is a classic gotcha that just completely falls apart if you bother to read the footnotes. Wu claims this treaty, signed in 1952 between Japan and the ROC government in Taiwan, proves Japan gave Taiwan back to China.
Okay. Did they? I mean, Japan lost the war. They had to give it back to someone.
Well, not exactly. To understand this, you have to look at the Big Boss Treaty, the San Francisco Peace Treaty of 1951.
Okay.
This was the massive international agreement that officially ended World War II in the Pacific. And in that treaty, Japan renounced all right, title, and claim to Taiwan.
Renounced. Okay, so they dropped it. Who'd they give it to?
That is the multi-billion-dollar question. The treaty doesn't say.
It just doesn't say.
It is conspicuously silent. You have to remember the context. It's 1951. The Cold War is heating up. The Korean War is raging. The U.S. didn't want to give Taiwan to the communist PRC. They were the enemy. But they also weren't sure they wanted to back Chiang Kai-shek's ROC forever. So they basically forced Japan to drop the keys on the table and walk out of the room without handing them to anyone specific.
So Japan essentially just said, I don't own this anymore. Good luck to whoever can grab it.
Precisely. This creates what's called the undetermined status theory in international law. So when Wu cites the Treaty of Taipei, he's citing a subsidiary treaty that can't override the main San Francisco Treaty.
Okay.
Plus, and this is the real nail in the coffin, Japan unilaterally abrogated the Treaty of Taipei in 1972 anyway.
Wait, abrogated, that means canceled, right?
Canceled, null and void. When Japan switched its diplomatic recognition to Beijing in 1972, they just tore up the 1952 treaty with Taiwan.
So he's citing a zombie treaty to prove ownership of a house where the keys were left on the table 70 years ago.
You really like these house metaphors, don't you? But yes, that is exactly it. He's building this entire legal castle on a foundation of sand that washed away in 1972.
Wow. Okay, so the legal argument is shaky at best. But Wu doesn't stop with the law. He knows that, legal arguments can bore people, so he moves to the thing everyone cares about. Money.
And that brings us to Section 2, the Golden Prison, or, as he would frame it, the economy versus freedom argument.
This is where he pivots. He says essentially, look at Macau, Look at Singapore. They're rich. They're safe. They don't have this messy, screaming chaos you call democracy in Taiwan. Why can't Taiwan just be a rich, quiet partner?
It's the shut up and eat your dinner argument. And it's very seductive because, let's be honest, democracy is annoying, it's inefficient, it's polarized.
It is so loud. Have you seen the Taiwanese parliament? They literally throw water balloons at each other, sometimes chairs.
They do. It's definitely a contact sport over there. But Wu is conflating order with stability. He points to Macau as this huge success story. And sure, Macau has a high GDP per capita.
But there has to be a catch, right?
There's a massive catch. Macau has an extreme reliance on a single industry, gambling. And more importantly, that entire industry relies on Beijing allowing mainland tourists to go there and spend money.
So if Beijing decides to turn off the tap,
Macau starves. It's not an independent economy. It's a VIP room for Beijing. It has zero political autonomy. It's effectively a colony of Beijing's economic policy.
but then he brings up Singapore. And I feel like that's a comparison I hear all the time. Why can't we just be like Singapore?
Oh, it drives political scientists crazy. It's the Singapore fallacy. Mr. Wu implies that because Singapore isn't a Western-style liberal democracy, it's the same as what China is offering Taiwan. But that is just factually wrong.
How is it wrong?
Singapore is a sovereign nation.
Right. They have their own army.
They have their own army, a very high-tech one, by the way. They have their own diplomacy. They sign their own trade deals. They have their own passports that grant visa-free access all over the world.
So one country, two systems, which is what Wu is selling. That is not the Singapore model.
Not at all. One country, two systems is the Hong Kong model. It means you lose your foreign ministry, you lose your Ministry of Defense. You become, essentially, a local municipality. Singapore would never, ever agree to that.
Comparing Taiwan to Singapore in this context is like comparing a free bird to a bird in a really nice gilded cage.
It's a perfect way to put it.
And this is where Miapoya had that fantastic comeback, the bean juice analogy.
Ah, doozy.
Yeah, doozy. For our listeners who haven't had the pleasure of being in Beijing, describe this for us.
Calling me a foodie for knowing what doozy is feels like an insult. Doozy is, it's fermented mung bean milk. It's a Beijing specialty.
And the smell.
Imagine wet socks that have been left in a gym locker for about a week, and then you blend them with a little bit of sour milk. It's pungent.
Okay, that's delightful. So Miao uses this. She says to Mr. Wu, "You can think bean juice is the most delicious drink in the world. That is your right. You can drink it every single day."
But you cannot force me to drink it and call that respect.
That just cuts through all the economic noise, doesn't it? It doesn't matter if the bean juice is made of liquid gold. It doesn't matter if it's the most nutritious thing on earth. If I don't want to drink it, forcing me to drink it is a form of violence.
Exactly. Democracy isn't about claiming your food is the best. It's about having the choice to refuse the juice. It's all about consent.
And you had a pretty dark metaphor for this whole fed and happy argument Wu is making. You called it the prison cafeteria.
Yeah. I mean, Wu is basically asking, why are you complaining? This prison has great food. They serve steak on Fridays. The internet is high speed. The AC is always cold.
Why are you complaining that the door is locked?
Exactly. The problem isn't the quality of the food today. The problem is that if the chef, in this case, the CCP, decides to stop feeding you tomorrow or decides to change the menu to nothing but gruel, you don't have a key to the door.
You can't vote the warden out.
You can't vote the warden out. You're well-fed cattle, not free citizens. And the chaos of democracy, the water balloons in Parliament, that's the sound of people holding the keys to their own house. It's messy, sure, but it's theirs.
That is such a chilling thought. But it leads perfectly into the next clash. We've done law, we've done money. Now we have to talk about feelings, or more specifically, culture. I just want to give another shout out to Mickey from Mickey to Life. His channel is a treasure trove of inspiration, and he's a huge Sip&Talk fan.
Absolutely. Make sure to check him out and maybe even share your awesome podcast intro with him once you've created it. And this brings us right back to those porcelain vases we were joking about in the intro.
Right, Section 3, Cultural Identity versus Political Sovereignty. So Mr. Wu brings up the National Palace Museum in Taipei. And for those who don't know, when the nationalists fled to Taiwan in 1949, they took just crates and crates of the imperial art collection with them.
It's one of the finest collections of Chinese art anywhere in the world. The jade cabbage, the meat-shaped stone. I mean, it's incredible stuff.
So Wu's logic is pretty simple. You have our stuff.
Right.
The museum holds Chinese artifacts. Therefore, Taiwan is culturally Chinese and thus must be politically part of China.
This is what academics call cultural essentialism. It's the idea that your cultural heritage dictates your political allegiance.
Ugh, I have to roast this. I call this the British Museum problem.
Oh, please do.
If holding artifacts determines your borders, then the British Museum currently rules the entire world.
The sun never sets on the British Museum's jurisdiction.
Exactly. They have the Rosetta Stone.
Yes.
Does that make London a province of Egypt? They have the Elgin Marbles. Is the UK now governing Greece? It's absurd.
And if we follow that logic, the Louvre in Paris makes France the owner of, what, half of history?
And the National Gallery here in D.C. has all those French Impressionist paintings. Does that make Washington, D.C. a colony of France? Do we need to start speaking French in the Senate?
It's just ridiculous when you apply it anywhere else.
It's what I call Indiana Jones logic. Where the treasure is, the border is. It is so outdated that even Indy would retire from it.
And it conflates two very, very different things, cultural heritage and political submission. You can celebrate Chinese New Year, you can read Confucius, you can admire a jade cabbage, and you can speak Mandarin, all without submitting to the political authority of the Chinese Communist Party.
Exactly. Americans celebrate St. Patrick's Day harder than most Irish people do. We dye entire rivers green, but we are not asking to be annexed by Dublin.
Though, to be fair, having an EU passport wouldn't be the worst thing right now.
Okay, fair point. But the principle stands. Culture is open source. Politics is a contract.
Well put. But let's move to Section 4, because this is where it gets really personal. This is what Miao Poya calls the Yuanwei argument.
Yuanwei. Can you translate that for us?
Yeah, it's an old term. It refers to a wealthy landlord, a local tycoon, someone with a lot of land and a lot of money back in the feudal era.
Oh.
Wu's argument here is fascinatingly psychological. He says, China is powerful. China is rich. We're building high-speed rail to the moon, metaphorically speaking. If Taiwan doesn't want to unify, it can only be because Taiwan has been brainwashed to hate China.
So he just can't conceive of a rational reason to say no. In his mind, the offer is just too good to refuse.
It's inconceivable to him. But this is where Miao hits back with that Yuanwei analogy. She admits, yes, the landlord is rich. That is a fact. We see the money. We see the skyscrapers in Shanghai. But, she says, I don't want to marry him. And that is also a fact.
The logic failure here is assuming that wealth creates an obligation for affection.
It's toxic bachelor logic. I see this in dating all the time.
Oh, tell me.
The guy who's like, I have a Ferrari, I have a penthouse, I have a six-pack. Why won't she date me? She must be crazy. Her friends must have brainwashed her.
You're laughing. It's not me. It's the foreign forces whispering in her ear.
Exactly. No, dude, she just doesn't like you. Or, maybe she doesn't like that you threaten to beat her up with military drills every time she tries to leave the house.
That's the crucial part, isn't it? The threat of violence just completely undermines the seduction of wealth. You can't woo someone while you're holding a club behind your back. You can't. And I want to touch on this brainwashing accusation, because Wu is basically saying, you only hate us because your government blocked you from seeing the truth.
Which is so ironic.
It is, because I want to just reverse this. If the CCP system is so superior, so undeniably attractive, why does the Great Firewall even exist?
Ooh, that is a mic drop question right there.
Think about it. If you're confident that your product is the best on the market, like the iPhone of political systems, you don't need to ban the competition. You don't block Google and Facebook and Wikipedia and the free press. You'd say, go ahead, compare us, we'll win.
Right. If you have the best car, you let the customer test drive the other cars. You don't just blindfold them and push them into yours.
The very existence of the firewall proves that they are terrified of the comparison. They're terrified that if their own people saw the alternative, they might actually prefer it.
And this leads to the ultimate truth teller. You can argue about history, you can argue about culture, but you can't really argue with people's feet.
Section 5. Voting with feet.
Miao makes such a brilliant observation here. Reality versus propaganda. You can say whatever you want on TV, but where do people actually move when given the choice?
So we looked into the data on this. China offers what they call the residence permit for Taiwanese people. It's this 18-digit code that basically treats you like a local citizen for most things.
They roll out the red carpet for it. It's subsidized. It's easy to get. They really want you to take it.
And yet very, very few Taiwanese actually switch their nationality to the PRC. They might go there to work, sure, they might take the money, but tearing up their Taiwan passport, giving up their Taiwanese citizenship for a Chinese one, it's incredibly rare.
Now let's look at the other direction.
Thousands of Chinese spouses, people from the mainland who marry Taiwanese citizens, move to Taiwan every single year.
And it is not easy for them. They have to jump through all these hoops, wait 6 years, do all these interviews.
But they do it. And as soon as they get their ID cards, what's the first thing they do?
They vote.
They actively use their voting rights in Taiwan. They participate in the democracy. They don't try to overthrow the system. They join it.
If the Chinese system were truly superior, you'd see Taiwanese people in a mass migration to Tianjin, tearing up their health insurance cards and begging for a residence permit. We see the exact opposite.
People move toward freedom. And let's be honest, they move toward better healthcare systems that don't require, bribes under the table. It's not brainwashing. It's rational consumer choice applied to citizenship.
Now, we have to get into probably the heaviest part of this whole thing, 6. This is where the tone shifts from toxic bachelor to something much, much darker. The trust deficit.
Yeah. In the dialogue, Mr. Wu dismisses allegations of forced organ harvesting as just Falun Gong rumors and smears by extremists. He just waves it away like it's a crazy conspiracy theory.
But you check the facts on this. Is it just rumors?
I wish it were, but it's not. It's a massive transparency black hole. We have the China Tribunal, which was an independent tribunal held in London in 2019. We have UN human rights experts. They have all raised very serious concerns.
What are they concerned about specifically?
The math just doesn't add up. The number of organ transplants happening in Chinese hospitals is massive. The wait times are incredibly short, sometimes just weeks. In the US, you wait years for a kidney.
Right.
But China doesn't have a voluntary organ donation system that can explain that volume of available organs.
So the big question is, where are all the organs coming from?
Exactly. And the global scientific community has reacted. The International Society for Heart and Lung Transplantation, the ISHLT, they've banned scientific papers from China, not because they're anti-China, but because they cannot verify that the organs were donated voluntarily.
I have an analogy for this, too. I call it the kitchen analogy.
Okay, let's hear it.
Imagine a restaurant. The owner's out front saying, our meat is ethically sourced. It's the best meat in town. Don't you worry about a thing. But the windows to the kitchen are all painted black.
Okay.
The health inspector is banned from entering. Journalists get arrested if they even get too close to the back door. And sometimes people go into the kitchen and they don't come out.
That is absolutely terrifying.
If you block every independent investigation, you forfeit the right to call it a rumor. Transparency is the only defense. If you have nothing to hide, open the kitchen door. Let the UN in. Let the inspectors in.
Precisely. And this total lack of transparency feeds into the broader issue of trust. Wu promises that one country, two systems will keep Taiwan's troops and government intact.
And Miao had such a great retort to that. If we keep our troops and our government, that's just two countries.
She's not wrong. That's Logic 101. But the trust was truly shattered by what happened in Hong Kong. We have to talk about the historical document disaster.
Oh, this was a PR nightmare.
So, back in the 80s, China and the UK signed the Sino-British Joint Declaration. It guaranteed Hong Kong's autonomy and way of life for 50 years. It was a binding treaty registered at the UN.
A contract.
A contract. But a few years ago, when the PRC wanted to crack down on the Hong Kong protesters, a foreign ministry spokesman called that treaty a historical document that had no realistic meaning anymore.
That is the scumbag metaphor.
The what?
It's like a guy who signs a prenup and then 10 years later says, oh, that piece of paper, that's just a historical document from our wedding day. It's a souvenir. I don't really feel like honoring it anymore.
And that is exactly why there is zero trust. Breaking a contract because I don't feel like it anymore means your signature is worthless. Why would Taiwan sign a peace deal if the last major deal you signed was thrown in the trash the moment it became inconvenient?
Exactly. You can't build a future on a foundation of breaking promises. And that brings us to the final point. Section 7, the foreign forces excuse.
This is the catch-all defense. Whenever there's a protest, whether it's in Hong Kong, Taiwan, or even inside China, Mr. Wu and the official narrative always blame foreign forces.
It's always the CIA, it's always the US, it's always the UK.
It's the universal scapegoat.
But just think about the logic of that for a second. If your system is truly so good, if your people are so prosperous and happy, How can a few foreigners incite millions of people to march in the streets?
Right. If I'm happily married, a stranger winking at me from across the bar isn't going to make me file for divorce.
Exactly.
It implies that the local people, the Hong Kongers, the Taiwanese, have no brains. It implies they have no agency, that they're just puppets or paid actors. It's incredibly insulting to their intelligence.
It's just easier to blame a shadow puppet master than to admit that maybe your own policies are just deeply unpopular. It's pure denial.
So, wow, we have unpacked a lot today. We've gone from the Constitution and that zombie treaty to the golden prison and the bean juice, from the British Museum logic to the toxic bachelor, and finally to the complete collapse of trust.
So what does it all mean? Let's try to synthesize the Taiwan spirit that Miao Poyo was projecting. Because she wasn't just debating, she was demonstrating a whole worldview.
I think Miao represents a shift from what you could call bloodline destiny to post hoc choice.
Break that down for us.
Authoritarianism, what Mr. Wu represents, views history as this giant wheel that just rolls forward, crushing everything in its path to create unity. You're born into it, your blood defines you, and you are a resource for the grand vision. You serve the state.
And democracy.
Democracy, as Miao describes it, is a house that's built by choice. It's imperfect. As we mentioned, the chaos of arguments in parliament, that's a feature, not a bug. It's the sound of people disagreeing without killing each other.
That's beautiful. It's a house where we argue about the wallpaper and maybe throw a chair over the budget, but at the end of the day, we all hold the keys.
And the main difference, democracies don't send their kids to war easily. Why? Because the voters say no. In an autocracy, people are fuel. In a democracy, people are the drivers.
And that leads us to our final provocation. We always like to leave you with something to chew on, something to make your brain itch, just a little bit.
Logic is the great equalizer. Whether you're inside the firewall or outside of it, logic still works. A contradiction is a contradiction in Beijing just as much as it is in New York or Taipei.
So here's a challenge to our listeners, especially those who might be tuning in from within the firewall, or anyone who finds Mr. Wu's arguments even a little appealing. We challenge you to step out of the comfort zone of your information bubble.
Ask yourself this one really uncomfortable question. What if they are right and I am wrong?
What if the chaos of Taiwan isn't weakness, but the messy, beautiful process of freedom? What if the rich landlord isn't trying to protect you, but to own you?
It's a scary question to ask, but asking it is the first step to intellectual honesty.
We don't want to see anyone crushed by the wheel of history. We want you to hold the steering wheel.
Well said. That feels like the right place to put a pin in it for today.
But wait, before you go, we have to mention our old friend Mickey.
That's right. If your brain hurts from all this constitutional law and geopolitical 4D chess, you definitely need a break. Check out Mickey's YouTube channel, Mickey to Life.
He's got the latest travel vlogs, great food, and way less heavy lifting than we do. It's just good vibes. Go subscribe.
And of course, remember to subscribe to Sip&Talk wherever you get your audio. Leave us a review. Tell us if you prefer the bean juice or the bubble tea.
See you next time, Sip&Talkers.
See you next time.